Would you rule out running for the leadership position yourself in November?
That's something that I've never considered, Joe. I think you know this. I've never even run for any office except one, and that was U.S. Senate 3 years ago. I never even ran for student government when I was a kid. So politics is not why I'm here. I'm here to actually make a difference. And I think we've got great leaders in the Republican Party. This is something that will sort itself out, I think, very soon. Leader McConnell's had a great, long career here in the United States Senate, the longest-serving leader, as you mentioned, and he's got a lot to point to. If you think about his success during the Trump administration, seating 3 Supreme Court justices, his impact on the federal judiciary will be long-standing and very positive for the nation. And he's come to the decision that the time has come to change. I appreciate that, appreciate his leadership, and we will sort through the leadership of our conference here in short order.
So, sir, if not you, who would be best to lead?
As I say, they're terrific leaders in the Republican side. I think everybody's got to think that through on their own. And my hope is that everybody that is interested in this will have a chance to speak with all of us. It's a process that, again, I'm not familiar with. I haven't seen this process unfold since I've been serving the United States Senate. But it's one that I have every confidence that we'll have a great set of candidates emerge, a great leader emerge as our next Republican leader here in the United States Senate.
Senator McConnell, of course, referred to his age in his address today and spoke to his affinity for Ronald Reagan and the inspiration that he got from the former president is the reason why he got into politics. He said, Senator, there's been a lot of analysis on why now, a lot of questions about why Mitch McConnell is doing this now. And many folks said beyond his age that it's the influence of Donald Trump, that it's a party that has left Mitch McConnell. Are they right?
Well, what the leader actually said today was he lost his sister-in-law. I know Angela. He said it was a time to pause and to reflect. And I accept that at face value. I think it was a chance for the leader to reflect on his life, what he's accomplished. And he said that he's at a point in life where he's ready to make a change, and he thinks it's the right time for our party and our conference here to make that change. I respect it, and I will take him at his word.
Speaking of timing, Senator, it's also interesting that this is happening amid the funding fight we are seeing on Capitol Hill, the race to avert a partial government shutdown that could begin at the end of the day Friday. But we now have a statement out from congressional leadership. There has been an agreement, 6 bills. First up, another 6 that will expire on March 22nd now. The first batch now March 8th. So we're kicking the can down the road again, it seems. Are you confident that this will pass? I thought we were doing no more CRs.
Well, I've heard the same thing that you have. As you know, I serve on the Appropriations Committee here in the United States Senate. I've never seen a process mismanaged as much as this since I've been here. We worked our way through all 12 appropriations bills and passed them to the floor last July. Since that time, Chuck Schumer's only brought 3 of those bills to bear. Look, those bills aren't perfect. They were as conservative a product as we could move through the Senate in a Democrat-controlled Senate, but my hope was to get them out and get them over to the House so that the Republicans there could begin to work on and improve those bills. We still haven't seen the text and the final work product from all of that. So I'm hopeful that we'll see the text in a few days. The CR, I haven't seen the text of that either to know what's going to be in it. But it looks to me, and it's unfolding this way, that there will be a short-term CR proposed sometime tomorrow that would take us, just as you mentioned, a few weeks into March to give time to work through these first 6 bills. And as I said, there's 6 more that are awaiting work to be done on them, and I'm sure that the staffs will be working around the clock trying to get those ready as well. But the fact that we're here at the last hour, at the last minute, continuing to bump up against funding crisis after funding crisis, this is a choice that's been taken by the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. He seems to want these massive omnibus bills and these crises that he likes to manage between. But this is certainly no way to run a railroad, in my standpoint, from my standpoint.
I have to ask you as well, Senator, about the supplemental emergency funding bill that the Senate passed and we're told is DOA in the House. This would bring funding, of course, to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, along with a border deal that I know you were not satisfied with. We talked to you right around the time that deal was struck. Knowing your feelings about the border, we're hearing from some members of the Republican Party in the Senate who are becoming more vocal about the need to fund Ukraine. Tom Tillis told Bloomberg, if Putin wins, Republicans will lose. Do you worry? I know your feelings about the border, at the same time about the political implications of what could be a lost war for Ukraine.
Well, Joe, my feelings about the border have gotten even stronger since I was down there last week. It's a total catastrophe there. We have got to do something to secure our nation's border, and I think the American public is speaking up loud and clear that they expect that to be taken care of before we turn our attention to other situations. To Ukraine. Here's the situation in Ukraine, and it's something that I think is quite regrettable. The Biden administration has done a number of things that led Vladimir Putin to have the confidence to do this. Afghanistan, probably the gravest mistake that we've seen. But Plan A for the Biden administration, if you recall, after the invasion took place, and this is after I was calling on imposing sanctions on Russia before any invasion, to demonstrate to Putin that we were serious, that we meant business, that this was not going to be like 2014 in Crimea. What happens after Russia invades? President Biden gets on the phone to Zelensky and offers him a ride home. That was Plan A of the Biden administration, was to completely cede Ukraine to the Russians. When Zelensky said, no, I don't want to ride home, I want support, President Biden was silent at that point. It took the Russian premier, Olaf Scholz, to step up and say, perhaps we should help. It took the American public actually saying, you know what, we're inspired by Zelensky's words. But Joe Biden was not in a position, nor was he willing.
Joe Biden's support for Ukraine, is he? I mean, some would argue he's politically
but I'm putting it in
based on the support that he's put behind President Zelensky.
Let me put it into perspective and put the timing into place. Joe Biden comes back to the U.S. Senate with a Plan B. They cobbled together a $40+ billion package that they didn't let us see and have time to evaluate. Over half of it going to be humanitarian aid. And I asked, what's the plan to win? When you're a smaller competitor like Ukraine going up against a much larger competitor like Russia, there needs to be overwhelming force at the beginning. No plan to win, as long as it takes.
So is Tom Tillis wrong
what we found
if
ourselves
Ukraine
in
loses because of this delay?
Well, I think the Biden administration has put Ukraine on a path to find itself in a war of attrition. In a war of attrition, a smaller player has very little chance. But there are Republican
fingerprints on this as well, aren't there, Senator?
There certainly are plenty of blame to go around at this point, but I want to go back to the origin here, and that is demonstrated weakness to Vladimir Putin, whether it be the waiver of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline sanctions, allowing Russian hackers to hit the Colonial Pipeline and having no consequence for that, extending the New START treaty, which encompasses 92% of our nuclear arsenal and only half of Russia's, not making any changes and giving him a 5-year extension. We have demonstrated weakness to Putin. He's been emboldened, and that has come squarely from Joe Biden and this administration.
Well, and to return to the issue of the border, it's worth noting President Biden will be at the border in Texas tomorrow, as you yourself were just days ago. There was reporting in the last week that the president was considering executive action on the border. The House Speaker said that's just election year gimmicks. But is that not something Republicans have been pushing for him to do? What would you like to see the president announce tomorrow while he's down there?
Absolutely, this is what Republicans have been pushing for, and I want to see action. This is one of the reasons that I have been going to the border. This is one of the reasons why I've been talking about it with you and Joe. I want the American public to understand, and I want to put pressure on the situation to try to address it at the border. Joe Biden, by his own admission, has the executive authority to do a lot. President Trump had brought us to a position where the border was as secure as we've seen it. And President Biden came in with executive orders and undid everything that President Trump had done, the very successful migrant protection protocols, the so-called Remain in Mexico policies, catch and release, reinstating that, doing away with Title 42, stopping the building of the wall. All of these things can be I think Joe Biden's going to take a hard look at this, but he needs to restart them. He needs to look back at the policies that work. I hope he will learn from this, and I hope that we see something positive coming from Joe Biden at the border tomorrow. I know that President Trump will be at the border as well, a little bit further away at Eagle Pass. This is where I was last week. I know President Trump will be calling this out. The American public are very focused on it right now. Joe Biden has an opportunity to step up and go back to policies that were working.
Well, I know you've been focused very much on border policy, Senator. It's also worth noting that recently you, along with Senator Ted Cruz and others, have put forward legislation that would prevent a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, being developed here in the United States. But just in the month of February, you've had the Federal Reserve Governor Christopher Waller say there is no reason for a CBDC because the U.S. banking system works well. The Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester said they will not create a CBDC unless asked by Congress. Why is this legislation needed now? It doesn't really seem like we're close to one, sir.
I think there's growing concern and a lot of work that's been underway at the Fed and other places moving in this direction. We've certainly seen China do it. And what I don't want to see is another opportunity for Operation Choke Point to manifest itself into our payment system. We have a private sector answer to this in stablecoins, a decentralized solution to this. We do not need a centralized bank digital currency, and we need to put the talk of this to the side.